There was another assassination attempt on President Trump early Sunday morning.
He and two Secret Service agents on the detail went to that area to investigate. They confronted a white male that was carrying a gas can and a shotgun. He was ordered to drop those two pieces of equipment that he had with him, at which time he put down the gas can, raised the shotgun to a shooting position. At that point in time, the deputy and the two Secret Service agents fired their weapons and neutralized the threat. He is deceased at the scene.
A 21-year-old man drove through the gates of Mar-a-Lago with a shotgun and a canister of gasoline. The Secret Service shot him dead. This is the third attempt on the president's life in less than 2 years, and the Sunday talk shows barely mentioned it. If you're like me, you were expecting something like this, because over the last several months, Trump's enemies on Wall Street and in the city of London have unleashed a massive psychological warfare campaign and a lawfare campaign to stop the tariffs, break the coalition that elected Trump, and remove him by any means necessary. And right on cue, the globalist press is celebrating. The Supreme Court struck down the president's IEEPA tariffs on Friday, and The Economist immediately declared victory. Susan Rice went on a podcast threatening that every corporation and law firm that cooperated with the president will be punished when the Democrats return to power.
When it comes to the elites, the corporate interests, the law firms, the universities, the media, I agree with you, Preet. It's not going to end well for them. For those that decided that they would act in their perceived very narrow self-interest, which I would underscore is very short-term self-interest, and take a knee to Trump.
And it's not just Rice. Jake Sullivan, Obama and Biden's national security advisor, went to Capitol Hill in December and told Democratic leaders they need to, and this is a direct quote from NBC's reporting, alter the cost-benefit analysis that companies are making when they work with the president. In other words, investigate them and make them afraid to cooperate with Trump's economic revolution. They want you demoralized. They want you to think the tariffs are dead. They want you to think the president is weakened and his enemies are closing in. And the midterms, well, they're already lost. They're wrong. I'm Barbara Boyd. I'm the co-author of the dossier, It's the British Who Murder Our Presidents. You can get it at the link in the description. Here's what I'm covering today. First, the assassination attempt and what the threats from Rice and Sullivan actually reveal. Second, how the globalists exposed themselves totally at the Supreme Court and why they lost. And third, what Trump's economic revolution has accomplished in just 1 year. The Democrats' public language on social media has become increasingly and repetitively violent. It is designed to motivate the mentally unbalanced to do violence against the president and his family. Here is Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent discussing this yesterday.
We had planned to have you on this program to discuss tariffs, but let me first begin with your reaction. Do you know if President Trump was in Washington at 1:30 a.m. last night?
Good morning, Maria, and good to be with you. I just spoke with President Trump. He spent the night in D.C. He was here for the National Governors Conference, gave a great speech to the governors last night. And, you know, Maria, I just want to say, why don't we look back here and think two would-be assassins dead, one in jail for life, and you know, this venom coming from the other side. Look at this terrible, profane Senate commercial in Illinois. I would call for them to take that down. Take that down, because it is that kind of venom that, you know, we don't know whether this person was a mastermind, unhinged, or what, but they are normalizing this violence. It's got to stop.
The ad Bessent is referencing comes from Illinois Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton. She's running for U.S. Senate with the support of Governor Jay Pritzker. It features elected Democrats, including Senator Tammy Duckworth, all angrily saying the F word followed by Trump's name. That is where the Democratic Party is right now. Their language and ads mere manufactured social media outrage directed at young people about the Epstein file cover-up and other fake claims about Donald Trump. The corporations the president needs to bring in line to rebuild our economy are being systematically derided as predatory billionaires and sexual perverts who need to be punished. The public version of this campaign is the threats being made by Susan Rice and Jake Sullivan. And the Democrats' 2026 midterm campaign strategy is centered on attacking, quote, billionaires who support Donald Trump. Their plan is to erase from your memory, from public memory, the hell we have all lived through under them, and to directly attack the gains Trump is making in the economy with destructive tactics like the current government shutdown. Now, why would Sullivan and Rice be taking such an out-front role? Well, they don't really have a choice. They're both probable targets in the Fort Pierce grand jury investigation into the Russiagate coup, which is going on right now. DNI Tulsi Gabbard has declassified the evidence. It shows a conscious criminal conspiracy to subvert a duly elected president coming from Obama's Oval Office. Rice wrote a memo to herself on Inauguration Day in 2016, claiming the entire coup operation was, quote, by the book and perfectly legal. Prosecutors call that consciousness of guilt from a witness to the entire criminal Obama-led coup. Sullivan pushed the knowingly false Russia collusion hoax manufactured by the British to the FBI as Hillary Clinton's senior foreign policy advisor. Donald Trump is dismantling everything they built, the threats, the violent ads, the lawfare. That is what cornered people do. Now, if today's program is giving you a different picture of the world than what you've been told, that's why Promethean Action exists. Subscribe to our free newsletter at PrometheanAction.com. We cover the real battle between empire and sovereign nations, and we'll keep you ahead of it. But here's where it gets really interesting. Obama's globalist allies just took their fight to the Supreme Court of the United States, and they think they won. I'm going to show you they lost. And the names on those briefs tell you everything about who destroyed this country and why they hate Trump's tariffs. Now, I'm not going to give you a bunch of legal schmiggle about the Supreme Court decision. Other people like coffee and COVID can do that. It's very narrow, and Trump has already moved past it and put the tariffs on very sound legal footing. But I'm going to talk about what no one else is going to tell you. What the plan was for using the tariff decision to crash the economy and hound the president out of office, and how briefs filed on the Supreme Court docket tell you who hates tariffs and why. I think that's the real story here. Let's watch how some of the City of London and Wall Street free traders bamboozled Maria Bartiromo yesterday in their attempt to crash the economy, and how Scott Bessent shredded them.
It's worth noting that this ruling will also have a profound impact on America's fiscal position. The Committee for a Responsible Budget, President Maya McGuinness told me that the Supreme Court ruling will cut government revenue by $1.9 trillion through fiscal 2036. It will increase debt by $2.4 trillion over the same period. Debt could now rise to 125% of GDP, with deficits rising to more than 7% of GDP. It's worth noting this SCOTUS impact on U.S. debt. Do you believe that the president's actions to come up with tariffs under a different authority will, in fact, replace all of the revenue lost from this ruling?
Yeah, so Maria, let's take a step back here. And Maya McGuinness should be ashamed, and they should take the word responsible out of her organization's name. Everything she told you was completely irresponsible. And look, where were they when the Biden administration blew out the deficit, that we had a fiscal contraction last year? So she should be ashamed.
Who exactly is the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget? Well, that Washington swamp group is an offshoot of the Peter Peterson Foundation. Who was Peter Peterson? He succeeded David Rockefeller as chairman of the Council of Foreign Relations, the City of London's front in the United States, and he continued the CFR's deliberate and shocking policy of controlled disintegration of our economy. They launched it in 1975 on behalf of Wall Street and the City of London. We covered that in depth last week. Now, the amicus or friend of the court briefs against Trump's tariffs are a veritable who's who of the people who outsourced our industrial base and destroyed our economy. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce led the fight. It is the largest lobbying group in the country, and it led the fights for China's WTO entry, most favored nation status, NAFTA, and the Trans-Pacific Partnership. It lavishes money on any Republican carrying its globalist agenda. I note that Chief Justice John Roberts was the Chamber's lawyer in private practice. That's pretty interesting. The Chamber led the campaign for his court nomination. Now, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce might seem to be something from your own backyard, like when local businesses get together in a Chamber of Commerce and collaborate. It's anything but that. The Chamber is backed by the intelligence community through its participation in the Center for International Private Enterprise at the National Endowment for Democracy. That's the CIA's regime change operation. The so-called economist brief filed in this case was even more revealing. It was signed by former Fed chairs Bernanke and Janet Yellen, the very people who bailed out the world's speculators in 2008 on the backs of our working class and built much of our present federal debt. They said there was no economic emergency when Trump came into office and invoked emergency powers. You heard that right. No emergency. After Joe Biden ran up $8 trillion in new deficits, fentanyl killed over 100,000 Americans a year, and millions of unvetted illegal immigrants flooded the country. Trump has put the prosperity of workers and the middle class right back at the center of his America First agenda. They want their system back. We're determined not to let them have it. Now, Trade Administrator Jamieson Greer explained yesterday why Trump used emergency powers to enact tariffs even when he knew they'd be challenged in court.
Coming into this administration, the president detected immediately that there was an emergency. The trade deficit, which is more stuff coming in from overseas versus being made here, that trade deficit blew up by 40% under Biden. So he took emergency action. Immediately, all of our trade partners around the world came to the table to negotiate market opening deals with us, and we protected our industries right away. So it's exactly the right thing to do. In the wake of this case, we can use other authorities that are frankly, very sound and very strong. So we're very confident that we'll be able to continue reconstructing this program.
There was a real emergency, and Trump needed to jumpstart his economic revolution well ahead of the midterms. Here's the masterstroke. In the 8 months the court took to decide, the work was already getting done. Countries were coerced into trade deals. Manufacturers began reshoring. Plan B was already in place. Here's Scott Bessent yesterday.
So let me tell you what's going to happen. First, this ruling was a very narrow ruling in terms of the president's ability to use IEEPA to collect revenues. The Supreme Court said the president can put in a full embargo, but he cannot collect $1. So the president still has the most draconian measure for negotiations, and that under Sections 232, Sections 301, we're already collecting substantial tariff revenue. The IEEPA tariffs are going to be replaced in 3 days with the Section 122. And I can tell you at Treasury, contrary to what the Committee for an Irresponsible Budget, or whatever it's called, says, tariff revenue will be unchanged this year and will be unchanged in the future.
The results after 1 year are truly remarkable. The Bureau of Economic Analysis reports a 17% decline in the trade deficit. Billions in new factory investments are here, and a nuclear renaissance is underway. The Department of Energy is building innovation campuses for modular reactors and fusion power, the revolutionary unlimited energy source of the future. So let's bring it together. Democrats are escalating violent rhetoric, and 2 former national security advisors are threatening American corporations because they're making their last stand for the upcoming midterms. The globalist establishment threw everything at the Supreme Court, the chamber, former Fed chairs, exiled intelligence officials, and the result puts Trump's revolution on firmer ground, not weaker. Now their arguments are exposed. And in the real economy, the American system is working. The trade deficit is falling. The factories are coming home. Please subscribe to our newsletter at PrometheanAction.com. And if you're ready to join the movement building what comes next, become a supporting member or contributor. This has been your Monday Brief. Thanks for watching.